Last week, a friend of mine told me that he hadn't yet seen the John Hughes classic Pretty in Pink. When he told me this, I immediately agreed to watch it with him, knowing that I hadn't seen it in roughly 10 to 15 years and I wanted to take another stab at it. This time around, I watched it with a more critical eye, informed by years of film study. As with most people, I've always had a problem with the ending, but I can never really put my finger on why. After this most recent viewing, I think I've finally figured out the problem. Although it's often hailed as a positive example of a feminine story told from the female perspective, the reality of the situation is that this film is incredibly degrading to women. Now, I'm no fan of feminist theory, and I often take issue with some of the so-called research that some feminist theorists partake in. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any examples of real misogyny or sexism in the media. With that in mind, I present to you The Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, Pretty in Pink, a Cinderella story of the 80s. I first began noticing the issue of sexism within the movie when I saw how Steph was treating Andie. Initially, after coming on to her, Andie refuses his advances. In reaction,
"You're a bitch."
It's as if Steph believes that women should be ready and willing to give in to his demands, simply because he is a man. Part of this can be explained by the fact that he is a spoiled brat from a rich family and doesn't know any better. But this isn't exactly a behavior that is only learned in those circles. It's worth taking note of, if only that it establishes at least one character's views on women in this film. Now, he's the scumbag character, so this attitude fits him just fine. However, as the movie progresses, we will see the same attitude expressed in different ways from two of the other men in Andie's life. That's right, Blaine and even Ducky, everyone's favorite dork, eventually display learned behavioral traits that signify an inherent sexism within the story. Don't believe me? Well, let's talk about Ducky. Even though everyone seems to love him, the fact is that he's the prototypical good guy. At a young age, some men believe that if they are a good person, they will somehow earn the affection of women that they are attracted to. This is Ducky's MO throughout the entire film. In fact, when he discovers that his ploy to win over Andie has been unsuccessful, he reacts by throwing a fit, refusing to be her friend, and trying to hurt her in as many different ways as he can possibly imagine. Eventually, after seeing her go through a pretty difficult experience at school, Ducky even rushes to defend her honor when Steph has some choice words for Blaine about Andie. After overhearing the discussion, he starts a fight with Steph in the hallway, physically defending Andie's honor, because in his view of the world, women need to be protected by good, strong men. In attempting to earn Andie's affections, Ducky displays a mentality that women can somehow be earned for good behavior, which makes them a prize to be won and degrades their value as a human being. He solidifies this understanding of women when he attempts to beat up Steph, another act of being the good guy. The only difference now is that Andie isn't here to see it, so the act has become more about protecting and defending her honor even when she can't see it. Instead of doing it for her affection, he does it because of how he feels about her. Ducky's act isn't entirely selfless, though. He's gone from treating her like a prize that can be won to treating her like a prize that he can't win. In the end, he still sees her as someone who needs defense from words she cannot even hear, which simply isn't the case. After all, she's a human being capable of fighting her own battles. Blaine's displays of sexism are much more complex, but they rely on the concept that he is somehow in control of her or that he claims ownership of her. Even from the beginning of their first date, which was a nightmare, Blaine is forcing Andie to do the things she simply does not want to do. She tells him as much, but he manipulates her into doing what he wants to do anyways. Every time she tries to end the date, he continues to manipulate her in order to try and regain some ground. Now, it's not unheard of for a guy to try everything he can think of to keep a bad date from ending poorly. But the second that you think you have control over your date, you've got the wrong idea. Blaine agrees to go to the prom with Andie, but later reneges on his agreement and lies to her about the reasons for doing so. This leads to Cinderella's fancy ball and the crux of my argument. Let's talk about the real reason that the ending of Pretty in Pink fell flat. It's not because the good guy Ducky didn't win the girl. It's not because Blaine did win the girl. It's because the girl didn't keep her promise to herself. After being dumped by Blaine, Andie makes her own prom dress and decides to go simply to, quote,
just want to let them know that they didn't break me.
This is an independent act from a strong woman, a strong female character. This isn't necessarily about Blaine, as she says that she is doing it to prove a point to them, a reference to the entire clique she earlier referred to as the Richies. This is the declaration of an act of defiance. It is not an act of desperation or an act made solely for the purpose of seeking attention or affection from any male counterpart. Regardless, when she shows up, Ducky is right there to hold her hand, effectively taking ownership of her and leading her into the dance. After all, she couldn't possibly be seen without a man standing by her side, right? That would be too progressive for a dainty, do-right girl like Andie, who has never revealed herself to be modern in any way, shape, or form. Oh, I'm sorry, was that too heavy-handed? Anyway, after leading her into the dance, Blaine comes up to both of them and makes a pivotal move that hopefully proves my point about both of them in this scenario. He shakes Ducky's hand. Now I know what you're saying. Ooh, he shook his hand. What the hell does that even mean? Well, let's ask the question. Why would he shake Ducky's hand? All he wants to do is talk to Andie. Does he really need Ducky's permission first? Well, in the world of this movie, where women are seemingly always at the behest of men, even though they definitely don't talk like they are, the answer is surprisingly yes. Even though this is a modern tale of a woman who is supposedly taking control of her own life, in the world of the men who adore her, they must show some signification that it is understood that one man currently claims ownership over the woman that they have brought to this cherished event. In fact, Blaine doesn't even say anything other than hi to Andie until he shakes Ducky's hand. A greeting that is also implicitly understood to be a request to speak with Ducky's partner. At first, Ducky is reluctant, almost as if he understands how stupid it is, but he eventually gives in and shakes Blaine's hand. Blaine then talks to Andie and delivers the pivotal speech of the movie. Afterward, he kisses her on the cheek, something she didn't necessarily consent to, and something that should seem odd if the two are broken up, but is presented as romantic. In the end, she runs after Blaine and Ducky gets left high and dry. A lot of people say they didn't like this ending because they felt like Ducky should have won her over, or that Blaine was the wrong choice. I think they're missing the point entirely. Once again, I must stress that Andie wanted to go to the prom for personal, independent reasons in a display of strength. In 5 minutes flat, her feminine strength is shriveled away by the classist and sexist atmosphere of a high school prom, wherein it is understood that women must be accompanied by men and that Andie must pick a partner. No, I'm not stupid. I understand that Andie's character is very complex and that she really does like Blaine. I understand that her motives might not be entirely fueled by a desire to show her strength and independence.
No, he really won't. He's not coming. It's okay. I'm gonna go. I'm not sad about it. I'm not hurt. You know, I am hurt a little bit, but I know if I don't do it, I'll just feel a lot worse.
However, the fact that she went to the lengths of crafting her own dress and essentially making this her own battle signifies to the audience that this isn't just about broken hearts anymore. When we see her get to the dance and immediately take one man's hand, only to trade up a few minutes later, the spirit of feminine conquest that was previously built up is entirely squashed and utterly destroyed. This could have been her moment to shine, but instead she abandons her original plans and essentially shows weakness before the social constructs that she is trying to dismantle. So Ducky didn't win Andie over in the end. So what? Andie isn't a prize to be won, is she? Should she be a prize? Does good behavior warrant his acceptance as a partner or even a close friend? Can any kind of healthy relationship truly be earned? Should it be earned? What really gets me about this is that Ducky apparently did win her over in the original ending of the film. Test audiences supposedly hated it, so they changed the ending to show Blaine successfully wooing Andie in the end. This means that there were people unhappy with both endings, which just further proves my point about why the ending falls flat. No matter who wins Andie at the end, if she is won, everyone in the audience loses. We don't get to see her conquest over the upper class and men who think they own her. So we don't get a strong and powerful ending where Andie proves her point and comes out on top. Perhaps if we had seen an ending like that, it would have been more satisfying. Who knows? What we do know for sure is that this was a movie written by a man, directed by a man, shot by a man, and edited by a man. To be fair, it was produced by a woman known as Lauren Schuler Donner, but aside from a few clearly strong feminine films in her repertoire, her work has been primarily focused on family-friendly fare and not on promoting strong feminine characters. This movie wasn't made to break the mold. It was made to conform to the societal trends and pressures that were felt at the time. Now, I still think Pretty in Pink is a great movie, but it could have been so much better and so much more meaningful had it simply kept on point instead of reaffirming ridiculous ideals of romance. What do you think? Am I way off base here? Let me know in the comments below. If you think your friends might get a kick out of it, please share this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider contributing to my Patreon. It's thanks to patrons that I was able to take the time to make this video, and I hope I'll be able to make many more like it in the near future. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.